Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Today on the show, I interview Marcus McAllister. Marcus is originally from the United States, but has called France home for over 20 years now. He lives in Belleville and has a great network of artists where he paints, he sketches, and we talk about how creativity has affected his life in so many ways. So welcome to the show, Marcus. How are you today?
Very good. How are you? I'm glad to be here.
I'm so happy to chat with you. We were talking to a common friend of yours, Calico, and I think you guys are working on a project right now together.
Yeah. For next spring, it's in the works, so we'll see where that goes.
I love it. That, like we just said, Paris is a village. All the artists kind of know each other, and I love that you're doing some collaborations.
It's good. That's how I found out about this podcast, because he told me about it when you connected me, I think, through him. So when I listened to his podcast, because I've been following you, and I was like, hey, wait, he's talking about me, our project. Hey! Connections are good things. Connections are good things.
Yeah, it's so true. We need connections. I think sometimes we just want to go in our holes and create and be, away from the world, but then the connections really bring the life to any project.
Well, I always say that artwork, because I want to be in my studio. That's just my goal. This is my place. But I do know that artwork, it's for ourselves, for the artist, but it's also a communication. Because if we're just doing it all alone in an emptiness, there's not the human connection. That's so important about artwork. Yeah,
definitely. I couldn't agree more. I think that comes up a lot on the show, and it's great to reiterate that. But I want to go back to the beginning of where you're from. What brought you to Paris?
Well, let's see. So I'm originally from Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. That's where I did high school. That's where my family's from. Although my dad was in the military, so I grew up in a lot of different places. My first memories are actually of Germany, where my dad was stationed.
Wow.
But did a quick recap. Did high school. So we settled back into Little Rock, where I'm from. Did high school there. Did my art degree in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge at LSU. Got my painting and drawing degree there. And then you're back in Little Rock, because with an art degree, what are you going to do? End up moving to New York on a one-way ticket just because I needed to be there. And was there for 4 years. But New York is a great place. I love it. But after a year, I felt like a tree with a bag on its roots waiting to go someplace. So I realized I was looking for elsewhere.
Yeah.
And gathering energy, having great stuff. I think the 4 years in New York, I was between art student artist. I was doing artwork, particularly my sketchbooks, and we can talk about my sketchbooks in a little bit. And then met friends, met some Frenchies through them, came to visit them in France, and came for 10 days in spring of 95. And then a year later, I was here. Like, this is where I needed to be. So right away, Paris, I didn't speak a word of French when I got here for 10 days, was out on my own, having great encounters. It was just where I need to be. And so a year later, I was here and haven't looked back. That's been 27 years I'm here now.
Gosh, that's such a wild ride. I mean, It sounds like you found the place you needed to be. And it's surprising because so many artists are in New York as well. Like, what was the main difference for you coming from New York to Paris?
I think the main difference, between the two cities, there's just an energy. Paris is definitely an international city as well, but it doesn't have quite the same high energy as New York, which for me personally, I wanted to be in New York. I was in New York. I went there really, literally on a one-way ticket without telling anybody, just went.
Wow.
And it was great. So I don't regret it. It's just that I sometimes compare it to that first love you have. There's a passionate love affair, but it's not meant to be. And then later you meet the person you marry. So Paris for me was that. I came to Paris and just felt at home. Now, the other big difference, I think, and kind of there's a more of a maturity, I think, in my reaction to Paris. There's also the fact of living in another language, navigating another language. I think becoming an artist, Paris really helped me, because in New York, so I was between art student and artist. Paris, I had to finish the work in my own head to present myself as an artist, to get my papers to stay. And almost as a bluff when I started presenting myself as an artist. No, I paint. No, I'm a painter. The return, that's when I actually really started showing works.
Yeah.
I'd shown a little bit in New York. I was starting to do that, but I was really just doing the artwork. And Paris was the place that the doors started opening.
And do you feel like what the doors really open because the connections you made here, or just the energy, like you said, or it was a combination of things?
Combination. It was definitely the connections. There's
Hmm.
also the fact that being in a foreign country where it's hard even to get bread because you have to think about the tense of the verb you're using,
Yeah.
it makes it easier to just talk about your stuff. I think
Yeah.
get paperwork since I had to present myself, and that meant that that's the important thing as an artist. I think it's so important to be confident and to
Yeah.
present yourself. And then, of course, the connection. It also helps being in France. I was, Marcus McAllister. When there was Jean Dupont, and Marcus McAllister in a group show, people noticed that.
Yeah.
So, and that does help being an artist. You have foreigners in New York. That's a helpful thing because anything to get you kind of looked into, seen is helpful.
Yeah, it makes you stand out. It's kind of exotic, just Marcus
Exactly.
McAllister in Paris.
Exactly.
It's a very like American name.
Well, and I know that, for example, so I moved here in '96, started doing shows here, started doing shows like in Arkansas and Louisiana where I had connections, just private shows. 2005 was my first time to show in an official gallery. It was the Baton Rouge gallery that I work with still.
Hmm.
So 2005, I came back to Baton Rouge for official show in a gallery. When I sent out the email announcements to France and here, everybody here was like, wow, you're going to an American gallery. I'm like, it's in Rouge, it's not New York, but they didn't care if it was an American gallery. So they're fantasizing on me going to the United States. I got to the Baton Rouge gallery in Baton Rouge and everyone was like, wow, you're the guy in Paris. I'm like, I'm just a dude with my sketchbook making my way. But it is helpful. People imagine on both sides.
Yeah,
So it's
definitely.
helpful. It's helpful.
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that, but that's so true because the French have kind of this obsession with America, and Americans have this obsession with the French, and it just as an artist, you could really use that cross promotion as like this. You're this exotic artist.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I said, I'm just this guy doing my artwork. And that's my whole point. Is I want to just be doing the artwork and I want to keep discovering the stuff that I'm doing.
Hmm.
I don't feel like I'm somebody that has the answer or the great work. I've got my questions and I keep scratching away and building. But it's helpful getting noticed when you go from place to place. Here in Europe as well, it's helpful to go to other places to kind of get out of the mode, out of your little circle. It's
Yeah.
always important.
And what kind of mediums do you use today? You like to mix like sketch with acrylics, correct?
Yeah, well, I have basically two prongs to my work. There's my sketchbook work, which are drawings, watercolor ink, basically water media mixed collage, all sorts of stuff. In my sketchbooks that I've had, started in college with professors saying you have to keep a sketchbook, and I got bit and have continued where I always have a sketchbook with me, even when I go and take my dog out because I don't want to think about whether I'm going to draw or not. I just have it with me. It's like my underwear. It's there before I step out the door.
Yeah.
So I always have the sketchbook. And for a long time, that was the only work I was really doing. Times in New York, first coming to France. And that's text and images. And I like to draw, but I don't want to just do illustration. So I mix things. And then these images also work bigger. There is a work that I do in acrylic, some mixed media, but just generally acrylic on canvas or on paper, larger. Like I said, my basis is in drawing. So even when I'm painting, there's a base of drawing. I like to draw things, so I don't do just abstract splash, splash, splash.
Hmm.
But I like to mix images and layers so that it breaks the image. So there's other things that happen. People always say that my work has a real dreamlike quality. Here in France, we say onirique. And I call my sketchbook my dream belly, my estomac onirique. Voilà.
It's so sweet. And I was looking at your work. I mean, it's beautiful and it does have this dreamy aspect. And I sometimes it feels like there's some science, that there's some stars and galaxy, and it's like this mixture. I mean, talk a little bit about your process. I mean, how do you decide what you're going to paint, what you're going to draw?
Well, I think my basis is curiosity. I like scratching away at things. And I kind of want to be like the archaeologist who's brushing away with that big brush, brushing away the sand and finds this runic tablet that's got, that's the way I work, is to be surprised. And particularly in the sketchbooks, I'm putting everything in. So like I mentioned, I always have the sketchbook with me. I also don't go back. So if for example, in a conversation with somebody and they talk at an opening, let's say, and they mention a film and I want to write it down, it's going to be on the pages open, which might have a drawing of somebody in the metro. It might have a drawing of my dog. It might have shopping list. Everything goes in there and it just simmers down because everything is something I'm interested in. Kind of like dreams, the way things come together. And I have things that I've been obsessed with. Like I'm on number 137 of my sketchbook. So I have 30 years of sketchbook
Wow.
work where I don't go back. I can follow things, an obsession. For example, right now I'm working on hands, and I've got a show coming up actually next week. That's really the work I've done the past year on these hands. And going back, I realized I have hands in my first sketchbook. I had some series of hands and paintings beginning of the 2000s. And then going through my sketchbooks while I was working on these series of paintings that I'm showing now, I could see, oh, here's a moment I was really looking at these hands. Oh, here's these hands holding birds. And I can think about what that meant at that time, what it means now. So it's a way of always weaving, bringing the stuff together bit by bit. I don't have anything pre-established that I'm trying to express. I'm just going in there and scratching away and seeing what I get.
I love that. So you're just following the curiosities in the moment or people you meet or things you see and then weaving them back together through time and space.
Yeah, in fact, like I talk about the paintings I do, some of the basic idea will come from the sketchbook work. So you can think of sketchbook as being sketches for the paintings. But then when I'm working on a painting, while I'm figuring stuff out, I'll pull out the sketchbook and work from a painting. So the painting becomes a sketch for the sketchbook work. So there's always mixing and piecing together. I very rarely have a painting that looks just like the sketchbook page, but it'll be like a map, like a treasure map. The sketchbook page I'm looking at, or the painting from the sketchbook page, is all I can keep myself interested and curious and exploring.
It never gets boring, right?
Because I don't want to get bored. That's why
Yeah.
I'm here in my studio.
Can't get bored. And
No.
talk a little bit about the artist community you've found in Paris and some of the collaborations you're working on.
Well, I've worked for a long time with the Atelier d'Artistes de Belleville. So it's an artist association here in Belleville where I've had my studio now for over 20 years. And that's an artist association that does the open studio, the Portes Vertes de Belleville, every year, which has been a great way of making connections because it's an annual event. People in the neighborhood know about it. People in Paris know about it. There's a certain reputation of that group that's really been helpful. I've done shows with different members of the group, different artists. They have group shows. There's 2 or 3 other artists in my building, so that's been really nice because for 20 years we've all been here in the same place with our studios. So that creates dialogue over time. I think one of the really things I think that's important about artwork as an artist is over time. It's not a one shot. I get a good idea and then it's there. It's seeing how that good idea will adapt when it has to confront the passage of time. That's what life is about. We have things, and then we see what's left 10 years later. Connections, artwork, ideas, just seeing how it sticks and what's really important over time.
I love how you can hold on to all of this too, because I think a lot of times we forget or we change or whatever.
Yeah. Which is normal. I mean, we don't want to be static and frozen in something. I always tell people about my sketchbooks, or when I encourage people to do sketchbooks as well. The sketchbook, we forget so many things, and that's normal because we can't keep everything in our heads. We wouldn't want to because then you'd be frozen in your past state. So life is change. It's nice having a place to put things down and keep them. That's why I rarely do like small drawings outside my sketchbooks. I've done before, and generally what's happened is I've put them in the sketchbook because then they're rooted and kind of held in place.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We need to let go of things so we can make more space for other things. But these sketchbooks are such a great way to like go back and take a look at what you were thinking, what you were doing.
And we're sending messages to ourselves in the future, to the work we're doing later.
It's time travel.
Yes, yes.
And what motivates you to create on a daily basis?
When I said to not be bored. So this is the thing. I feel like I got bit, or like a fish on a hook back in college, and I didn't come from an artist family, so I'd always been drawing. I actually was first in my class at an all-boys Catholic school in Arkansas, in Little Rock. So I was predestined to be an engineer, to be a rocket scientist, because math and science, and I like that kind of thing. You saw it in my sketchbook work. I like that kind of stuff. I started doing artwork in high school just for myself, just for fun, and that's what I want to do. So I went off to college. I did a year of architecture when I did a first year at Notre Dame, and then I moved to LSU, and I was like, oh no. As soon as I got applied stuff, so graphic design I did for a while. Of course, my parents are like, yes, That's serious. And then I was double majoring in painting and drawing. And then finally I told my parents, this is what I want to do. And of course they freaked out. My dad was really afraid. They're really afraid. My dad, I remember him saying, like, you don't come from a family of artists. You're going to be there doing artwork with these people. That's their family. That's where they come from. But I stuck to it. And I think something that's so important, courage is so important. Courage, they always say, is doing something despite being afraid. If you're not afraid, you can't be courageous. And I think it's so important coming to France, going to New York like I did, coming to France, continuing to do artwork, trying to keep doing shows and putting stuff out there. These are acts of courage. And courage is so important in life because you just got to keep trying things, keep testing.
I think that's great advice. And also the whole challenge, of learning a new culture, a new language. We can't know how that's influencing our work in a creative way. We're constantly finding solutions.
Exactly. I remember talking to an artist. I was a residency in Beauvais. We were both in Beauvais for that. And she was an older artist photographer. And she said to me that you can't know what your career is going to look like, the shape that it's going to be, because life happens, opportunities happen, and you can look back later. And she was much farther along, so she was looking back and seeing, here's the form my career has done, what my work, the shape it has, but you don't know that before. So, and that's part of the fun of it, exactly,
Yeah, you don't know where it's going to go. And I think for certain types of people that can be really difficult because they're like, I want to know, how am I going to succeed? Can I make money at this? So it's just kind of going on that ride and trusting in it and enjoying following those curiosities.
Following the curiosity is important, to not get bored, looking for little chunks of desire. Sometimes when I'm between series, when I'm kind of like, okay, what's next? I just flip through my sketchbooks, flip through all the photo references, stuff that I have in the studio, just kind of putter and find little thing. Oh, here's something I want to draw. I don't even ask questions, just kind of do. I think creativity is something that's so important. You can either create or analyze. Those are two separate processes. And as adults, we have a tendency, all of us, have a tendency to want to analyze what we haven't yet created. And that's the best way to block creativity. You're already analyzing what you're hoping to do. And so that's the way of like, oh, no, that'll be stupid. No, that's stupid. No, you got to get in like a kid that just wants to play, right?
Yeah.
And see what you get. And then it's important to analyze as well. Is this crap or not? You got to look at it later. And I get going when I'm pretty working on a painting or just even a sketchbook page. I know there's that moment of, oh, this is interesting. I want to do this. And then it's like, oh, no, this isn't very interesting. Oh, I'm not very interesting.
I'm not interesting. Yeah, but you don't know until you try. And I think that's what you're really getting at. And I think, like you said, as adults, we kind of cut ourselves off from play. We're analyzing before, like you said. So I think that's great things to like catch yourself. Be like, oh, wait.
I always talk about when I try to do artwork, so the state that I want to be in is a moment where it's kind of like when we're in the ocean. The feeling when you're in the ocean, the waves are coming in. There's a moment where maybe the water's about chest deep and a wave comes in and you're kind of picked up off your feet and then you're put down elsewhere. That's the flow state that I'm looking for when I'm working, because there's a moment like, oh, this is awful. This is awful. But keep going. And there's a moment where I forget and the voice stops griping. Right? The voice stops talking. The analytical brain stops saying good, bad, this, that. And I'm just doing. And then I'll come down the other side. And they can see what I really, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Now, maybe the next day I'll come back to look at the painting. I'm like, yeah, no. But still, sometimes I come back and that's the painting is finished and I'm pleased with it. Of course, the goal is the painting that a year later I look at, I'm like, I can see it as if it's somebody else's work. I'm like, damn, I kind of like it. So
yeah. No, I think that's a great metaphor, the whole wave taking you away, because those flow states are so important, as we know in the creative, if we're like in the moment.
Getting in the moment and getting that talking brain to shut up and stop telling us whether we're doing good or bad or what we're supposed to be doing. And particularly being a professional artist, we know you're trying to sell work, what pleases, art career, to be savvy about it. But all that needs to be put aside, put elsewhere in the moment we're trying to create, because otherwise, no, not going to work.
And talk a little bit about that. I mean, you're a full-time artist. You have to run a business. Like, talk about some of the aspects of that and the advice you have for other artists who are struggling with the business end of things.
One thing is important to be organized. That's an essential thing. Organized. You've got to keep track of inventory. You've got to keep track of basic stuff, like you have to pay taxes, you have to keep track of bills. That's important. You find I'm pretty organized in it, but it's helpful to find ways to keep track of things, because it's really impossible to keep track of everything. Like, I have a list of sketchbook pages where I've cut them out and shown them and they've gone off in the world. I've got a list of that. When I do a show, I've got a list. When I take works to a gallery, I've got a list of all the works, a little image, a little photo that I put next to it for me and for the gallery person, so that we know what they have, what I have, because later, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you don't know what was in that show anymore. And you go, wait, was it there? I've worked with galleries where we're trying to find a piece that they've got stuck in their archives. And I can say, well, here's on the list. And I, to update those lists, it's a pain. But when I get works back and I bring new works to a gallery that I'm working with, I try to update those lists. I send them a new one so we both have a copy. And that's kind of the, it's not the most fun thing. It's not very glamorous, but it's important.
Yeah,
so that's one thing. Staying organized.
definitely.
The other thing I think is just to keep doing artwork. That's the essential thing, more than anything else. And it's really hard to be doing artwork when you're worried about paying rent and eating. So it's important to have, figure out jobs, support networks, all that kind of stuff. But the important thing is to keep doing the work.
Yeah.
It's good to want to be a full-time artist if you're not able to get in the studio. For me, it's always been so important having a space that is my studio space. The space I've been here now for over 20 years, and sometimes I've actually lived here. And I actually tell people, I'm camping out in the studio because it's a 2-room apartment that I first got to be the first room, which was still larger than the chambre de bonne that I had when I first moved to France. And the main part of the apartment is my studio space. And there are times when I've left in a relationship and an apartment elsewhere, I've come back to camping out in the studio, and not friends, but more acquaintances are like, well, why don't you switch around? You could live in the big room and work in the front room. And I'd be like, why?
Yeah.
I say it's acquaintances because those who know me go like, yeah, no, that's not it, because I don't need a lot of space. I got a place to sleep, I got a place to eat, a place to take a shower, and then I have space to work.
Make your work the most important thing, right? And I know all of us that live here know how hard it can be to find a space in Paris, like
or a studio. Living here in a city, I mean, I like the urban life, so I've got to make do with what I've got. That's also a question of being organized. I tend to vampirize the stretchers. When I get works that are a little bit older, I'll take them off the stretcher, roll them up to reuse the stretchers. I just don't have the space to keep everything. Luckily things do go out and can go away, but it's important to think about that. I'll destroy works for that reason. If later, try not to be too precious with things, because it's a movement. I got to keep moving.
I think that's such great advice, and definitely something we can think about in other ways in our life too. And describe why art is important to society today. What's the importance of art in society?
Well, like I said earlier, art is communication. Like, I wouldn't want to be just doing my artwork, accumulating it here for myself. Because we can do art as therapy, whereas art is a journaling where it's just for oneself. And that's important. And sometimes I feel like my artwork, I'm doing my psychoanalysis on the walls for everybody to see. But it can't just be that. So work that's too hermetic, too closed off, and there's not a communication. I know that people ask us, well, what does this painting mean? I'm like, well, what do you see? I like it when people come and tell me, oh, I see this, that, and the other. It might be completely different what I was expecting or what I was thinking, but that gives me threads to pull on for later, to keep it open. I mean, I want to be asking questions, not giving answers. So, and a communication, that's what that is. That's asking questions to each other, not giving answers. So that's where it's important. It's a way of discovering stuff, to explore, to think about things in a different way. And there's also just a place to play, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We always come back to that play and starting conversations,
Yeah.
You said starting a conversation.
Yeah, that's where I think it is really important to put work out there at some point. It can be kind of scary putting work out there, but it's a nice way to let go of it, to see what happens. I've had shows where a piece has been in a show and I'm like, oh, it's not finished. But it needed to get out of the studio to realize that. And I think it's important to be humble, to recognize those moments of, oh, nope, that one's not done. And to be able to say it, to see it, to recognize it. And when somebody's like, oh, this is not my favorite, I'm like, yeah, not mine either. I like to do a thing here in the studio, and people will come in, particularly when I've got a series up of works that are in a common series. I like to ask people, particularly when they're comments, I say, what's your favorite? And then I say, so give me your 3 favorites. And all that's actually just a trap to put them at ease. Because then I say, okay, which one should I destroy? And they're like, oh, no, they're all wonderful. That's very helpful. If I put them at ease, I'm going to tell me the 1 or the 3 that I should destroy to save the rest. And they'll end up, if I put them at ease, to say which one they like the least. Because what's interesting is somebody else that might be there at the same time, they won't have the same idea, because things touch people differently. And it's interesting to see that. particularly if we're humble enough to ask the question and to listen to the response. Some of the pieces that I like the best aren't the ones that other people are in a show are going to get noticed, because I'm too emotionally invested in my own work to see that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's something really important you say about being humble, because I think especially in the artistic world, it's like so connected to our emotions, obviously. And it's like, oh no, you hate me because you hate my work.
Exactly. And it gets so connected with ego that I have to have the show, it has to work, otherwise I am nothing. And then being humble, I like to try to think of myself as a passer. Do we say that in English? I don't even know. Passeur. Something that like
No,
transmit.
we
Like,
don't.
I
You
don't know if we say that.
speak
I get words like that do English. But basically, that I don't want to invent my own works and then just execute them and then present my results. Basically, something I've already figured out. I like to think of my work as something coming from beyond me, that transcends me. That I'm just the medium. Basically, passer is like a medium that goes through, and that way I can also get away from the pride factor, to be humble about the stuff that I feel like I've just been a witness to, that just kind of coming through me, because that's how I stay surprised and how I stay interested in my own works. Like, wow, where'd that come from?
Yeah, and that's something that's been coming up a lot, I think, in conversations lately, because in today's world, it's like, oh, I've created this. This is all me, me, me. But in ancient times, it was like, oh, the gods spoke through me, And I think it's coming back to that, taking all that pressure off yourself. Like, you can work with the creative spirits as well. It's not all you.
And I think you get away from that, because that's all ego. I remember going to an opening and there were a lot of people there. It was a group show, and this one woman, one of the artists that was showing, we got to talking, and they were all kind of complaining because there weren't a lot of people, and she's like, "Well, I never go to shows. I don't see other artists' artwork." And I was kind of surprised. She's like, "Well, no, because I don't want to get my inspiration." How did she put it? She didn't want her inspiration to be diluted by seeing other people work. And for me, that kind of pride, she was basically just being blind to all the stuff that influenced her. So she wasn't being conscious about it. And I think it's very important. Me doing artwork, that's also me becoming conscious about my stuff, to see it. Because we see so much stuff in the world, and to deliberately ignore that these are influences because we think we have to be the genius that we're coming out of nowhere. That's just stupid.
Yeah, I like that. That's stupid. We won't name any names. And
yeah, because we're so influenced by everything we see, everything around us, and it's important to embrace that and say that we're not I just don't get going for that. We're all just kind of here together. Everything we've done has been done before in some way or another. The important thing is we're the one right here, right now, in the particular spot that you're in or I'm in, to do that particular thing. And that's the way you have to live, to be right there, right now.
Yeah, exactly. We're in this moment, and that's what it's all about too, is this creativity, this playfulness. It puts us in the moment, right? Because we're always in our heads. So when you can get out of your head, wow.
Out of your head, out of your ego. Yes, that's the important thing.
And how do you define creativity in your own words?
Oh, I've already kind of said creativity is play. Creativity is, it's solutions. It's actually, creativity is asking questions. So it's not necessarily finding responses, not finding answers. It's asking questions. So which is kind of, for me, as an idea of play. It's a way of like, finding a thread. I'm like, that's interesting. What is that? And pulling on it. Apparently, my first word when I was a kid was that. And I've used that ever since then. And I think that's a really creative stance in the world. What's that? What is that?
Yeah.
Asking the question.
I love that.
That's why I think that people can be creative without actually doing artwork, for example, without having a physical manifestation. Creativity is about asking questions.
Yeah, the curiosity, like we've talked about too, following those whispers, following that curiosity. And what advice do you have for people who are maybe searching for their creative gifts and don't feel like they've found them yet?
Keep doing. Do it. Do. Keep doing. I can't stress that enough. The important thing is to do stuff and to find something that's interesting and try it. Do it. If it doesn't work, you can do something else. If it's not very good, that's fine. You've done it, because in doing, you will find something. And the more you do, the more you'll find stuff. It's like the same thing as anything in life. To go out there, to test, I think we all can get kind of blocked from the idea of what the result's going to be before you even do it, like I said earlier. And that keeps us from doing. And the important thing is to do, because when you do something, whether a life decision, but particularly artwork, you do something that will open other possibilities that might be where you need to go that you couldn't see before. So just keep doing. Put pen on paper, or dance, or sing, or talk, or go out there and meet somebody. but just keep doing. Don't get stuck. Don't stop and say, oh, it's not worthwhile. I can't do anything. No. Do it saying it might be bad, but at least I'm doing it, because that's the important thing. It's Brene Brown that talks about vulnerability, that we see is courageous, those who are actually in the arena fighting. So get in the arena, go and fight, try something. And if it's bad, that doesn't matter. Just do it again. Keep doing it. I think some of the most amazing people are the ones that keep doing something and it's bad, but because they love doing it.
I love that, because they love doing it. I think this whole artist thing doesn't work out for you. You could be a great life coach, Marcus. do.
I have done some mentoring, and so a gallery I was working with in London that set up a program. I've done some mentoring, some life coach kind of thing. It's like being a professor. I've done workshops from time to time, but I've never wanted to do any of that kind of stuff full time, because I want to keep the time and space to be in the studio. But yeah, I've ended up doing some kind of like encouraging. I think I'm very optimistic kind of by nature, and but a practical optimism. It's not like, oh, everything will be fine. No, make things okay. Find the best. Choose the best.
It's a great character to have, especially in a city where you can sometimes feel like everyone's pessimistic. It's like, have that positivity.
I think the French, they really love optimism when it's not just it'll be fine. And I don't care for that. I've always been very optimistic, even as an American. Sometimes the French will be like, oh, you're optimistic because you're American. It's like, no, even though I was in the United States, I've always been known to be fairly optimistic. But then I'm not an optimist like, oh, everything will turn out if we don't do anything. No, for me, optimism is about choosing positive. So to figure out what the best, even when you've got bad choices, figure out what's best, and then make do with what you've got in some ways. Like find out what's the best, to find out what makes you happy. Even when it's like a small thing and kind of a gray day, well, find the little glimmers.
I love that, the glimmers.
Yep.
And talk about future work. What are you excited about? I know you have something coming out next week. Talk about what you're looking forward to.
Well, right now I'm really excited about this. A whole bunch of new work that I've been working on. I'm very excited about to show that. So that's kind of the big thing. And then, of course, I'm also very excited about to see what will happen after this show. So I'll be showing from the 13th to the 24th of September, so the next 2 weeks. And then end of September, beginning of October, when I'm back in the studio, I have some of the pieces of this series. It's hands with birds. Some of the other, it was also with that. I lost my dad last summer, so I've been talking about that, about his hand holding me up. So there's some emotional stuff. But some of the paintings I haven't finished for the show are on the wall. So I'm looking forward to getting into see if I can finish them. But even more important, see what's next. See whether this series continues and how it adapts now that I've finished this show. I'm sure I'll continue with these hands, or if there's something else, and to be in that kind of play state of here in the studio, seeing what's next. I don't know yet. We'll see.
Well, I love the excitement. I love that you're being vulnerable and sharing so much with us, and I can't wait to see what you'll do next. And where can people connect with you online and see your work and follow your work?
Best places on Instagram, so marcus.mcallister.artist. That's my Instagram profile. I'm on Facebook as Artwork of Marcus McAllister, and I have www.marcusmcallister.com, but I haven't updated that in over a year. So Instagram's the best place. And if anybody's in Paris, if this podcast, I don't know when you out with this, but either come to the show that's in Galerie 43 in 13th near Place d'Italie. That'll be the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, my studio is in Goncourt, and I still do teas, and people come by to visit me in the studio. So,
lovely. We'll definitely share all of that in the show notes, and make sure you head out, guys, and support local artists. If you're in Paris, you are local. And thank you so much, Marcus. I really appreciate you talking to us today.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. It's been cool. Yay.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.